It's a Mailbag Monday. Could Emmanuel Rodriguez of the Twins be a top 10 prospect this time next year? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is made possible by our friends at Ibotta. Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying the app by using code MLB when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, use promo code MLB. So as we do every Monday Mailbag, this is your show. If you have questions for us for a Mailbag Monday, lots of ways to reach us. Best way, joining our subtext. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes. That comes straight to me. If you have any questions, conversations, anything like that, that's how you do it. First one came from subtext. We have a couple different Jeffs. This is Jeff K. But he asked if Emmanuel Rodriguez of the Minnesota Twins, by the midpoint of next year, so the All-Star game next year or the Futures game next year, could Emmanuel Rodriguez be a top 5 or top 10 prospect? And I absolutely think he could. And I'm not just saying that because we fixed him a few weeks ago when we reminded him you have to actually swing the bat. So, story here on Emmanuel Rodriguez. 51 games right now in High A, so Cedar Rapids. 214, 378, 429 slash line. 10 home runs, 17 extra base hits, 48 walks to 74 strikeouts, 9 of 11 on stolen bases. Now, there are some things to be concerned about when you see that slash line, okay? A 430 slugging, a guy who was projected to have plus power, only slugging 430, isn't necessarily that impressive. Only 17 extra base hits in 51 games, not necessarily that impressive. 74 strikeouts in 51 games. Not necessarily that impressive, but he's made some improvements both year to year and during this season, and his performance has skyrocketed as a result. Last year, if you remember, he struggled a lot with off-speed pitches. If you could change velocities and still be able to land that changeup for a strike, you would get him. And early this year, the big problem, and we actually talked all about this in a show. He was the first person in the show. He was in the thumbnail, and it was like, you have to swing the bat. He was way too selective early this year. He spent a lot of time waiting for almost the perfect pitch. And so because he was waiting for the perfect pitch, he was letting strikes go by. He would get into a disadvantaged count, would end up having to expand the zone, having to chase, and would strike out. So we put that out. I believe that was the June 7th episode. I have to go back and check the exact date. I think it was the 7th. But from June 8th on, so after that episode, 18-game sample for Emmanuel Rodriguez. 281, 446, 547 slash line. He raised the batting average 65 points. He raised the on-base percentage like 70 points. He raised the slugging 120 points. He has 4 home runs. He had 10 all year. 8 extra base hits in those 18 games, with 19 walks to 21 strikeouts, again in 18 games, 4 for 4 on stolen bases. So the strikeout rate has come down. It's still just over 1 a game, but nowhere near the 74 strikeouts in 51 games that he has on the season. The power has ticked up. Everything has gotten better. And so this was something he had to do because he's playing a lot of center field, but defensively, Emmanuel Rodriguez is very much probably likely to be a corner outfielder. The speed's only necessarily average. He does have some physical development that he can still do. I mean, I believe he is just now 20. He's just now 20 years old. So he has physical development left. You have to assume he has a good chance of ticking down a little bit in speed, and it's already just average. The arm is plus, and so I think he could be an above average defender in right field. Again, plus arm, he could do all of that. So the future is bright for Emmanuel Rodriguez. Now, Jeff's question was, could he be a top 5 or top 10 prospect? And when I go in and I look at the top lists as of Sunday morning for Baseball America and MLB Pipeline, MLB Pipeline has him at number 62. Baseball America has him at number 55. And this is based off of the performance he had early in the year, which was bad, right? Like, they both re-rated in June, and he didn't really pick it up until June 8th, until we put out our show. Again, we fix players here on this show. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume he could jump maybe 10 spots on those lists, just based on how well he's hitting since that date, assuming he continues to do it. Continuing on with how high he could climb, when I kind of scroll through the top 100 lists, depending on which one, I see around 15 to 20 guys that feel like they have a good chance. If they're not going to graduate this year, they would graduate by midseason next year. Some of them are already in the bigs. Ellie De La Cruz, Cincinnati Reds, Bobby Miller, Gavin Williams, guys, Taj Bradley, guys who were already up at the major league level. Some of them are guys who either have had a cup of coffee or are going to be up next year. I'm thinking about like a Sal Frelick. Logan O'Hoppe will be back to healthy from the shoulder injury. He will be up. Kyle Harrison of the San Francisco Giants. Shane Baz of the Rays. Brandon Pfaadt of the Diamondbacks has gone up and down a couple times. And so it's really easy to see 15 or 20 different guys that could come out from the list. So that's now on Baseball America. You take out 20 guys, he's now the 35th prospect in baseball. Do I think he can jump 10, 15, 20 spots? I absolutely do think he has the combination of plus hit tool potential and plus power tool potential to do that. So ultimately for Emmanuel Rodriguez, I do think he has a chance at being a top 10 prospect next year, provided everything breaks right and he continues to hit like this in high A versus what he was doing early in the year. Sean asked us why Corbin Carroll doesn't feel like he's getting enough attention and enough love. And this is the joke is East Coast bias, but I think there's a little bit to that. I mean, Corbin Carroll's being recognized, right? He's a starter in the National League All-Star Game as a rookie. He is the favorite on FanDuel right now for Rookie of the Year, minus 390. Ellie De La Cruz, who Sean mentions in the question, is getting a lot of the attention right now. He's at plus 480. And then behind him is actually 3 more Cincinnati Reds. Matt McClain at plus 3,000, Spencer Steer at plus 5,000, and Andrew Abbott at plus 7,500. But Corbin Carroll's had an amazing year. If you haven't necessarily realized exactly what he's done, 79 games on the season, 290, 366, 559 slash line for Corbin Carroll. 17 home runs, 40 extra base hits, so better than one every other game. 29 walks to 64 strikeouts and 24-26 on stolen bases. Again, he's a starter in the All-Star game as a rookie. So this is just something where so much of the media, the baseball media, the national media, is located on the East Coast at a team that plays in Arizona. They play later at night, things like that. They're not getting as much attention as this guy would if he was playing in not only New York for the Yankees or Mets, but even like Atlanta or something like that. So Corbin Carroll deserves to be one of the best stories of baseball for the first half of the season. In just a minute, we're going to get to a great question from a subtexter, another Jeff, about trying to pick a new second baseman in Dynasty. And we'll get to that next right here on Locked on MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our new sponsor, Ibotta. It is officially summer. 4th of July is this week, and that means you want to pick up like burgers, hot dogs, ribs, whatever it might be for a summer barbecue. You're already doing it. Why not get cash back with Ibotta? The Ibotta app gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care, pantry goods. So while prices are going up, you can be beating inflation because you're getting extra money. You either link the loyalty account that you have with that store, or you upload your receipt after you shop and you get cash back. The average Ibotta user earns $120 per year. You can use that. You can get cash back into your bank account or to PayPal, or you can get gift cards, whether it's something like Starbucks, Lowe's, Macy's, Best Buy, whatever it might be. So right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code MLB when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or the App Store, and use code MLB for a free $5. Welcome back to Locked on MLB Prospects. Doing our mailbag here. Reminder, if you have questions for the mailbag, best way to get them to us is via subtext. A lot of the questions we've already covered and are going to cover today are from subtexters. Jeff, in the subtext, said he's trying to find a new second baseman in fantasy. And from the conversation we were having, it sounds like he really hasn't necessarily had a reliable second baseman in fantasy since Chase Utley retired. So that's how hard he's trying to find one here. And he gave me 3 names. We're going to go through the 3 guys real quick. Carlos Jorge, Termarr Johnson of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Nick Yorke of the Boston Red Sox. So starting off, Carlos Jorge of the Cincinnati Reds. 63 games in A-ball this year. 293, 390, 480. 7 home runs, 22 extra base hits, including 6 triples, 33 walks to 57 strikeouts, 27 to 32 on stolen bases. Friend of the program, Chris Clegg with the Dynasty Dugout, he has him rated as the number 98 prospect in Dynasty Baseball. So the story here for Carlos Jorge, the speed's pretty good, right? Above average. The reason he's having to move to second base is the arm. The arm is below average, and the defensive actions aren't fantastic, right? So he's going to have okay range, but it's literally just playing defense is not as easy for Carlos Jorge. Now, guys do get better defensively as they move through the minors. That's something that we have seen, but the arm is just going to limit him to second base, similar to how Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves had to move from shortstop to second base because of the arm. Same idea here. Offensively, he is a good hitter. He's going to run high averages and high on-base percentage. The question I have about Carlos Jorge is, what is the power ceiling? He's got a pretty short lefty swing. I do like how he can cover most of the plate pretty well. And if you leave a mistake, he will hit it out. That's fine. But I just don't know where the ultimate power ceiling lands in the whole thing, right? He does have some mechanical issues if you pitch him inside. He tends to, it's more of a hand placement thing than anything, but he can roll over some stuff or not make optimal contact on a pitch inside. And so he's not really tapping into the power that he does have if you pitch him inside. But middle third, outer third, he can handle that. And again, he can cover the whole plate. He's just not making optimal contact inside. So the issues he has is mechanical and then power development, just trying to get that going. Again, I still think he's going to have good averages, good on-base percentages. It's just, what is the power ceiling in Dynasty? And obviously that means he's going to have to be in a good lineup to make up for the lack of power production and probably lack of RBIs, but he can rack up plenty of counting stats as far as runs, stolen bases, because he'll be on base. Second guy, Termarr Johnson of the Pittsburgh Pirates. First rounder last year out of high school. 52 games in A-ball. 232, 387, 396. 7 home runs, 15 extra base hits, 42 walks to 71 strikeouts, and 3 or 4 on stolen bases. He is at second base because just about everything like defensively that matters, the arm, the defense, and all that, is really just kind of average, right? And we knew in the draft he was going to be a second baseman. It was one of those, like, you never take second baseman that high, but he just feels like he has the potential to be a very, very good hitter. It feels like he could have plus power. You look at the bat speed's really good, but the hit tool is special. Like, he's one of those, we talk about hitters are born, not made. He's one of those born hitters. He does have a little bit of extra stuff in the swing. He's got a big leg kick and things like that, but the bat speed is good, the bat control is good, he can cover the entire zone, and then the pitch recognition's good enough where he can do that second level of pitch recognition where he's not just doing ball versus strike, he's doing strike versus drivable pitch. So it's that second level of pitch recognition. Now, you can see from the strikeout numbers, 71 strikeouts for Termarr Johnson in 52 games. He's still adjusting to professional quality off speed and breaking pitches and good velocity, right? It's not something that he dealt with a lot in high school. And so still some work to do there. Obviously a little bit farther away, it feels like, but I think he could end up the best hitter of the three in the future simply because of such a high floor on the tools and the potential to have plus power. Termarr Johnson was 55th on Chris Clegg's rankings of prospects in Dynasty Baseball. The third guy on the list from Jeff was Nick Yorke of the Boston Red Sox. Chris Clegg has him at 91st for fantasy baseball. He is a top 100 prospect, kind of consensus across a lot of the different MLB pipeline, Baseball America, and things like that. 64 games in Double-A. He is closer to the bigs than some of these other guys. 276, 365, 453, 9 home runs, 24 extra base hits for Nick Yorke, 33 walks to 70 strikeouts, 6 of 11 on stolen bases. He is at second base because the speed and the arm are below average. The defense itself is good. He's got good hands, good reactions. He makes very few errors. It's just the range is going to limit how many balls he can actually get to, right? Now, offensively, he was a little bit underrated because he had some health issues last year. He was out some with wrist soreness, he had back stiffness, he had turf toe, and so his mechanics got really out of whack as he was trying to compensate for all of these things. But he's healthy this year. I do like his ability to outperform his ranking being 91st over that of Carlos Jorge's or Termarr Johnson's. So I do think he probably has the lowest price of the three and has the best ability to outperform his ranking now if Jeff's kind of trying to go out and make a deal to get one of these guys. But should be a high on-base percentage guy, good batting averages. I think he can probably get you 20 home runs or so when he gets to the majors. And it's something where I think because of the higher level, you could see him late in the year in 2024 and then set up for a Rookie of the Year campaign in 2025. So if I'm ranking them, I'm probably ranking Nick Yorke number one simply because he should be the cheapest to acquire in Dynasty, and I think has the best ability to outperform the cost you get for him, even though I think Termarr Johnson will end up ultimately being the better player. Carlos Jorge is the one that could be the most well-rounded as far as if he can develop more power, and again, 480 slugging, but that's in A ball, so a little bit of caveat there. But he does give you the dimension of the stolen bases that none of these other guys have. Termarr Johnson is 3 of 4. Nick Yorke is 6 of 11. And so Carlos Jorge will give you more stolen bases. Termarr Johnson should hit for more power. Nick Yorke should get up first. Again, I'd probably go for Yorke if I'm going for one of these three, but I don't think you can do wrong with any of them. Understanding that I have Jorge third because it's going to be so hard to break into that infield in Cincinnati because they have so many middle infield prospects ahead of him in the system. In just a minute, questions about Oscar Colas of the Chicago White Sox, Joey Cantillo of the Guardians, and some other prospects. We'll get to that next right here on Locked on MLB Prospects. Welcome back to Locked on MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. Stay tuned this week. A lot of fun stuff coming up. We're going to break down the features game rosters. This is the final week before the draft. Our mock draft, which we were not able to get out last week, is going to come out this week. Last minute news and notes before the draft, all that fun stuff. Another question from Subtext about Oscar Colas of the Chicago White Sox. Has he finally kind of turned the corner where he can be an MLB performer? So remember, he broke camp with the White Sox, signed in January 2022 as an international free agent. He had played in Cuba and Japan, and so it was something where he shot through the minors last year, had like an 895 OPS, 20-something bombs despite missing some time with injury. But he struggled when he got up this year, and I think a lot of that was the adjustment period. He probably needed more time in AAA because adjusting to Major League pitching, it's a lot different beating it in Double-A than it is beating it in Triple-A or the bigs. So since he went back down to Triple-A, to Charlotte, I believe, 296, 362, 516 for Oscar Colas, 9 home runs, 23 extra base hits, 18 walks to 42 strikeouts, 2-2 on stolen bases. He is striking out less than once a game, which is good. When you look at some of the advanced numbers, because we have advanced stats for AAA, he is swinging more than average in AAA, 49.9% swing percentage for Colas. The average is 44 in AAA, but he's making more contact than average, 75% contact rate, whereas the average is 74. So he's swinging more, but he's making more contact. He is barreling balls a lot more than average. 7% is average for barrel rate. He's at 11.7. His average exit velo, 88.3, right there at average, but his 90th percentile exit velo, 108.3, which is the 16th highest in AAA of guys who have at least 50 batted ball events. So taking out a couple big leaguers who were rehabbing for 2 or 3 games or small samples, it is a top 20 90th percentile exit velo, which is usually more illuminative of how hard a guy hits the ball than something like a max exit velo where you can get lucky with 1 and it skews the whole thing. Now, when I kind of go and dig in some of the other stuff, he is making 85% contact in the zone, which is better than average and much better than he was showing at MLB. And he's brought his chase rate down 5% from 39% to 34%. I do think, and that whole issue, it's pitches down and away. He's getting got on sliders that are breaking down and away from him. Happens to a lot of guys. But I do think that his approach has adjusted and it gets a little bit better. He had been very, he was trying to pull balls for power early in the count before he kind of relaxed and got into more of a let's just make quality contact approach. He's gone more into that well-rounded, let's make quality contact no matter when it is in the at-bat. But if you leave me a mistake, I'm going to pull it for a home run. So I like what he's done. I think he's on the verge of being ready to come back up if Chicago needs another corner outfielder. The issue is arm is massive, but the speed isn't necessarily great, so he's kind of confined to right field. But love what Oscar Colas is doing, love the improvements, and he's probably going to struggle when he gets back up in the bigs simply because he's got to get used to MLB quality breaking pitches and velocity and that sequencing, but still like the improvements Oscar Colas has made. Question here, actually about 2 different prep players from Hawaii. We don't see a lot of Hawaiian prep players. First one's Joey Cantillo of the Cleveland Guardians, and this question was, he's in the AL Futures game. Is this something where like he's destined for the rotation, or is he probably going to get traded? I think he's probably going to be in the rotation. 2017 16th rounder, again out of high school in Hawaii. 13 games, 11 starts between AA and AAA for Joey Cantillo. 2-1, 3.55 ERA in 58 and a third innings, 74 strikeouts, so 11.4 per 9. To 35 walks, 5.4 per 9, 7 home runs. Now, his numbers have struggled a little bit in AAA. He's not looked amazing in Columbus with the Clippers. So that's part of the reason why I don't necessarily think he's going to be trade bait this year. He's destined to end up eventually being in the rotation. But swinging strike, 15%, 31.9% CSW. So the stuff itself is good. The lefty fastball sits 94. It's somewhere between above average and plus for me. It's got good carry up in the zone and a really unique angle. He's 6'4", and it's a high 3/4 slot. So think about how many times you see a 94, 95 mile an hour from a fastball from a lefty coming in from a high slot at that steep angle. I don't feel like you see that a ton in baseball. So it's really kind of hard for hitters to get used to. He also has a changeup that is plus. And then to work with that, he throws both a slider and a curveball. I like the slider better, but I think they're both effective, and he can land them both for strikes. The slider has more horizontal movement than vertical. It's not a true sweeper, but more horizontal than vertical. The curveball has more vertical than horizontal. It's a good combo. Now, the walks haven't looked great since he got to Columbus. It is something where AAA uses the Major League Baseball ball, where he was using a different ball. He wasn't in the Southern League, but he was using a different ball in AA. So that may be part of it, as well, just a better level of competition. But I like Joey Cantillo. I do think because the struggles you've seen in Columbus, he's probably not a candidate to get moved at this deadline. So the plan for him will be in the rotation unless they move him in the offseason or next year at the deadline. The other prep player out of Hawaii, Rosario, outfielder for the Minnesota Twins, actually plays with Emmanuel Rodriguez, and recorded this on Sunday, it's his birthday. So happy birthday, Rosario. 5th rounder in 2020 out of high school. Very underrated hitter. One of the sleepers in baseball, but in that system. 66 games in high A, 264, 376, 488, 12 home runs, 29 extra base hits, 41 walks to 76 strikeouts, 2 of 4 on stolen bases. Defense is not great, so he has to hit. I mean, I've watched him in right, I've watched him in left. He's not looked great. He might end up moving to first base in the future. We'll see what happens there, but he's got really good raw power. Has some swing and miss in there. You can kind of see 76 strikeouts in 66 games. It's there, but it's not bad decisions. The swing decisions are good. The chase rate is good. It's mechanical issues in the swing that he's got to fix. So you feel better about that than if he was making bad decisions, right? So like Rosario a lot, still needs to hang out in high A because he's got some things to work on, but promising player, really underrated, and also happy birthday. Last guy, infielder Michael Arroyo of the Seattle Mariners. 2022 IFA, has 16 games between rookie ball and A ball, 377, 472, 656. Absurd slash line. 2 home runs, 11 extra base hits in 16 games, 8 walks to 9 strikeouts, 4-6 on stolen bases. Again, small sample size. A couple of those games were in rookie ball, so kind of early to know exactly how good he's going to be. And he has to do that physical development for power. When you look at Michael Arroyo, last I saw him listed 5'8", 160. He's got some work to do, obviously, but I do like how short the swing is, how quick it is into the zone. I do like the really good plate coverage he gets. I do think ultimately his ceiling depends on what the power does, and that's all going to come back to physical development as he matures. He's playing with Modesto right now. Shout out, Anthony. I do think it's great if he stays there for quite a while, probably the rest of the year, simply to get into that routine of playing every day, work on the physical development now that you have nutrition and all that provided by the team. I want to see what he can do. Defensively, he's going to be a second baseman. The arm's not great. The defense isn't great. He's going to be a second baseman. So it's even bigger that he has to be able to hit if he wants to make it to the bigs. But I do like some of the surface level stuff we've seen from Michael Arroyo. Fantastic week coming up this week. Again, last week of shows before the MLB draft. We will be live on Sunday night for the first round of the MLB draft, a 1-hour show. Leading up to that, we're going to have our mock draft come out this week. We're going to have some last minute news and notes. I'm going to do a primer on the draft for everybody who doesn't quite know exactly how it works and all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, if you have questions for the show, lots of ways you can get them to us. Twitter's not that reliable. We saw that over the weekend. Check out our subtext. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes, chats directly with me, text messages back and forth. Really useful tool for a lot of people. Most of these questions in here came from subtext. In the meantime, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.